Imagine being able to control how everything went in your life. Now you might be thinking, that sounds like a fantasy. But actually, maybe it's not so wild to consider. Today, this is what we're going to be discussing, and it all comes back to our locus of control. Maybe this is a phrase that you've heard before, but essentially our locus of control refers to the degree that an individual feels that they have control over the events that influence their lives, versus it being a result of external forces or circumstances. Now, of course, it's a spectrum. We all sit somewhere between these two extremes, with an internal or external locus of control being at each side. An internal locus of control refers to an individual who believes that they're ultimately responsible for and have control over the outcomes or events in their lives, while someone with an external locus of control believes that their lives are ultimately a result of the external forces and events that happen to them. It essentially describes a sense of agency that we feel about our own lives. Now, how much of our life is a result of our choices compared to the circumstances that happen to us? And for a couple of different examples, maybe consider someone who went for a job promotion. Let's say this person went for a promotion and unfortunately they didn't get it. An internal locus of control might refer to someone who said, hey, I could have been turning up to work 15 minutes early each day. Or maybe I didn't put in enough time and effort. I should have been checking in with my manager consistently throughout the promotion cycle to know where I was positioned. But someone on the other side with a more externally focused locus of control might say, there was just too much office politics. My manager didn't check in enough with me. The person who got it, they didn't really deserve it. They just got lucky. Or we could bring it back to the markets. We know that currently on the markets, there's a sell-off that we're all experiencing. Someone with an external locus of control might say, inflation's got away from us, there's just too much macroeconomic uncertainty, the central banks have let it get out of control. This is all outside of my control, it's a market crash, it's just impossible to win. While someone with a more internally focused locus of control might say, hey, I mistimed it, valuations were stressed, unfortunately, I mistimed it and I got my assessment wrong. This is a learning chance, and heck, maybe there are even some other opportunities throughout the correction that we're currently experiencing. And so an internal locus of control can be empowering because it puts the power back into our hands. An internal focus can also incentivize our own efforts and work towards a goal because we believe that if we put in the effort, we have the ability to define our own path and ultimately the potential success. Now, an external locus of control on the other side can mean that we feel at the mercy of the world around us. Sometimes if we feel like we've got an external locus of control, it means that we don't have meaningful control in our lives and we play more of a passive role. An external locus of control is not all bad. Sometimes it may be beneficial in a team environment, and potentially it could lead to lower levels of stress with lower levels of burden of high performance that those with an internal locus of control may feel. But if we begin to reassess our mindset and the way that we view different situations, this can flow through to our behaviors, and ultimately it can flow through to the outcomes that we see on the day-to-day. We all have the choice of how we perceive and respond to situations. Now, it doesn't mean that life will be all easy if we focus to have more of an internal locus of control, but we can train our minds to look inwards and to be accountable. Ultimately, an internal locus of control returns a power to ourselves as individuals. It means that we're responsible for our decisions and the world around us. And it was Sigmund Freud who once stated that most people do not really want freedom because freedom assumes responsibility, and most people are afraid of that responsibility. And so that then brings us to the question, how do we develop more of an internally focused locus of control? First and foremost, it's by accepting and acknowledging that this is a choice. It's a choice that we make daily and with each decision. We're not stuck on one side of the spectrum. Of course, our past experiences, our personality, our upbringing, they will all feed into where we lean. However, we all have the ability to train ourselves and our minds to have a more internally focused locus of control. We should focus on controlling what we can, which is our choices, our thoughts, and our actions. We obviously can't control how others act or the circumstances around us. However, when we focus on controlling our own decisions and how we respond, this ultimately can have an impact on and influence these external factors. It's a good strategy to try and take responsibility and be accountable where we can. However, of course, it is much easier said than done. We all have a natural inclination to often resort to, this is unfair. Why did this happen? This has only happened because of X, Y, or Z. But imagine if we tried to reframe and we said, I should have started working on this earlier. It's my bad. I wish I wasn't rushing at the end. Or, hey, I had the opportunity to study harder for this. I should have put in more training. I didn't. But that's a great learning opportunity for the future. I'm sure we've all met someone who tries their best to put a positive spin and try to take the good out of every situation. Now, it's not always easy to do this, but it is always a choice. How we respond to events, the self-talk, the way that we perceive everything around us, ultimately can have a much bigger effect on our lives than the actual events themselves. We can't choose the circumstances, but we can always choose how to respond. Thank you so much for choosing this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, subscribe, turn your bell notifications on. Feel free to share it out, and here's another video as well that you can check out after this one.